Hey guys, it's Miss Rising again, and I have another story for you. This one is called Library Mouse. This is written by Daniel Kirk, and I actually have a challenge for you at the very end of this. So I hope you listen to the whole story and take me up on my challenge. Okay, Sam was a library mouse. His home was in a little hole in the wall behind the children's reference books, and he thought that life was very good indeed. Every day, when the library was full of people walking up and down the aisles, studying, checking out books, and working on the computers, Sam was curled up in his little hole, sound asleep. Every night, when the people went home and the room was dark and quiet, the library belonged to Sam. And every night, Sam read, and he read and he read. Sam read picture books and chapter books. He read biographies and poetry, cookbooks and sports books, fairy tales and ghost stories, and mysteries by the dozen. Sam's mind was filled with facts and information and images of faraway places, and his imagination brimmed over with wonder and fantasy. One night, Sam decided that it was time he wrote a book of his own. Sam folded over some little squares of paper he took from the librarian's desk to make the pages. Then he found a pencil that had rolled underneath a shelf, and he began to write. Write what you know. Sam had read in a book about writing, so Sam wrote about being a mouse. He drew the pictures for his book by posing in his little mirror and then sketching what he saw. I love how he has a acorn hat right there. Maybe it's a helmet. Sam worked very, very hard, and finally his first book was done. He called it Squeak, A Mouse's Life, and he wrote on the cover, Words and Pictures by Sam. He went to the autobiography section of the library, and he tucked his first book onto the shelf. Then he went back to his little hole in the wall and waited. You can see he's putting his little paper book right there. Right there with all of the other biographies. The next afternoon, sunlight streamed in through the library windows. "What's this?" asked a girl whose teacher had sent her to the library to do a book report. "I've never seen anything like this before," said the librarian. And she put Squeak, A Mouse's Life, on her desk. Later, she showed it to the other librarians. Sam decided to write another book. It was called The Lonely Cheese, and working on the book made him feel very hungry. It was a good thing that he always found so many crumbs to eat by the trash basket in the hallway. When he had finished the illustrations, Sam scurried to the picture book section and proudly placed his latest book on the shelf. Then he went back to his little hole in the wall and waited. You can see the lonely cheese right there. I want to read his books. The next morning, sunlight streamed in through the library windows. "What's this?" asked a little boy who was looking for a big book about trucks. "It's another book by Sam," said the librarian. "Just who is this Sam?" she thought to herself, and put the lonely cheese on her desk. Later, she showed it to the children at story time. Now, she used his books to read to the kids. Sam decided to write a chapter book. It was called The Mystery of Mouse Mansion, and it gave Sam goosebumps when he wrote down the scary parts. The full moon was shining down through the windows of the darkened library when Sam crept over to the mystery section and sneakily placed his book on the shelf. Then he went back to his little hole in the wall and waited. He was writing mysteries, and he's got his little Sherlock Holmes outfit on. He's playing the parts. The next day, sunlight streamed in through the library windows. "What's this?" asked a teenager who was looking for a good creepy book to read before bed. "We've got to find out who this Sam is," said the librarian. "I'll leave a note on the bulletin board and tell him that I would like to meet our new author." She put The Mystery of Mouse Mansion on her desk, and later she showed it to the writing class that came in after school. That night, Sam found the note. It read, "Dear Sam, all of us at the library have been enjoying your books immensely. We are all wondering who this mystery Sam really is. Whoever you are, you certainly have a lot of talent. Not everyone has it in them to write even a single book, let alone 3. We think it would be fun to have a Meet the Author Day with you as our special guest. The children would love to hear you read your books and share some of your secrets for writing. Yours truly, Mrs. Forrester, Head Librarian." There's the letter. Sam felt very nervous. He was happy that the children at the library liked his books. He was flattered that they wanted to meet him. But mice, as a rule, are very shy when it comes to meeting people. Sam could not understand why people thought that writing and making up stories was so hard. If only they would try, they might find out that writing was really lots of fun. Sam had an idea. He went to the librarian's desk and got some supplies. All night long, he wrote and drew and snipped and folded and stapled his little rectangles of paper into mouse-sized books. And I love that he's standing on the stapler to get it to work. So he's making little mouse-sized booklets here. In the morning, when the librarian opened up the children's room, there was a sheet of paper taped to the door. "Meet the author today," it read. A little girl was the first to see Sam's display, all set up on the front table. "What is this?" she asked. There sat a tissue box with a pair of pencils taped to the sides and a banner stretched across the top. On the banner was written, "Meet the Author," with an arrow pointing down. So you can see what he came up with right there. So you're supposed to look down in there to meet the author? What do you think's in there? The girl bent over to look in the empty tissue box. "Oh," she said in surprise, for there at the bottom of the box lay Sam's little mirror, and in the mirror the little girl saw her own face smiling up at her. "Me?" she said, "an author?" Next to the mirror was a stack of tiny blank books and a pile of pencils that Sam had sharpened with his little teeth. He wants them to see themselves as authors. And he got them some pencils ready. All that day, and for many more thereafter, people came to the little display to meet the author. Soon there was a whole shelf full of books written and illustrated by people who had never written a book before, telling stories that had never been told. You can see them working on their books, and then the display right there of all of their stories. Sam was a library mouse. His home was in a little hole in the wall behind the children's reference books. All that night, Sam sat in his hole thinking and thinking about the next book he would write. Would it be a mystery, an adventure, a funny book, a true story? There were so many stories to tell. Aha, he thought, I'll just have to write one of each. Sam picked up his pencil and got to work. So he's continuing to write stories. So I hope you enjoyed that book. I want to give you a little challenge based on our story, Library Mouse. I know that we are in a strange time right now where everybody's at home and doing things from your areas and your own homes, but I would like for you to start thinking about and start working on your own stories. I want you to become an author because everybody is an author in their own way. And so regardless of how old you are, whether you're really young and in preschool and kindergarten, or you are one of our older kiddos in 5th grade, even if you have older brothers and sisters that want to participate, I want you guys to put together a little booklet, kind of like what what our library mouse did. Just put together a few pieces of paper, glue them, staple them if you got a staple gun somewhere, and write your own story. It could be a mystery, it could be a biography, it can be a real story about something that really happened. You do whatever you want it to be. And I want you to work on writing a story. What I would like to do in our library is to create a display area where all of our students have submitted stories to me and your teachers, and then have those set out for everybody to read. And we'll have a little meet the author area. So I'm going to be working on that in our library, and I want you to be working on some stories. I'll even work on a story myself. So I want you to be thinking about that. It doesn't have to look a certain way or be about anything in particular. It just has to be a really good story that people are going to want to read, okay? And if you have any questions, just shoot me an email sometime, okay? And I will talk with you guys soon. Bye.